The next one, it says we're dividing complex numbers. And because I is equal to the square root of -1 and we have to rationalize our denominator, what they tell us is we have to get the I out of the denominator of our fraction. If I have a binomial, I'm going to use the conjugate. If it's just a single term with an I, the conjugate is just changing its sign. But the conjugate of 6 minus 6I is going to be 6 plus 6I. And so I have to multiply both the top and the bottom by 6 plus 6I so that when I FOIL out my conjugate, it cancels my middle term and I end up with something that doesn't have an imaginary number. Go ahead doing the whole thing, multiplying the top. -3 times 6 is -18. -3 times 6I is -18I. -3I times 6 is another -18I. And -3I times a positive 6I is a -18I squared. Substituting in our -1, that makes a plus 18. Okay, that one has a -18 and a positive 18. So I'm just going to have a minus 36I when I combine the -18I and the -18I that's in the middle. On the bottom, 6 times 6 is 36. We're going to have a plus 36I and a minus 36I, and then I'm going to have a minus 36I squared. I squared is -1, so that makes that plus 36, and 36 plus 36 is 72. And so now I'm going to simplify that. Since it's a fraction, I'm just going to put the I behind it. So -36 over 72 would be -1/2, and the I goes behind it. So my answer here is going to be -1/2I. The next one, if I multiply by the conjugate there, I'm going to use 4 plus I. It's always the conjugate of the denominator, so the same terms with the opposite sign. Multiplying it out on the top, I get -12I, then I get -3I squared. We know that's -1, so negative times a negative makes it a positive 3 minus 12I, switching it around so that it's in standard form. On the bottom, 4 times 4 is 16. I'm going to get a positive 4I and a negative 4I for my middle terms, which will cancel out. And then I'm going to get a -I squared. I'm going to put a -1 in there, and a negative times a negative makes it a positive. So I get 16 plus 1, which is 17. So in standard form, they're just going to make these two separate fractions. And so I'm going to have 3/17 minus 12/17 I. And of course, if I could simplify my fractions, I would, but I couldn't, so I didn't. One more of those. So number 18, my conjugate, I'm going to use -5 plus 6I. Same two terms, just the sign in front of the imaginary part changes, not on the real number part. So foiling, -3 times -5 is 15. Then I'm going to have a minus 18I, and on the inside a minus 30I. And then my last, a positive 36I squared. That's going to be -1, so I'm going to have a minus 36. Whoa, where did my board go? Let's move that down, back down to where we were at. Must have had my pen on the board too long. And so, combining my like terms, of course I want to do the real number part first. So -36 plus 15 would give me -21. And then -18I minus 30I would be -48I. Gosh darn, my board moved again. Okay, on the bottom, see if my board behaves. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. My outside product is negative 30i. My inside product is positive 30i. Those are opposites, so cancel. Negative 6i times a positive 6i is a negative 36i squared. So when I put in my negative 1, I get a positive 36. So 25 plus 36 would be 61. So at the bottom of each of my fractions, I'm going to have a 61. If I could reduce those fractions, I would. I don't think I can, but I'm going to double check quickly. Nope, I can't. And so my answer is going to be negative 21 over 61 minus 48 over 61, and the I goes behind that so that it's in standard form.